What's going on? This is your man John Fortune, your host of the Frustrated Fan Sports Show, and today we're going to talk about the week that will be the NFL Combine, and we're going to talk about a lot of stuff. But first, I'm going to talk about this. I want everybody to understand, don't be fooled by a lot of these reports and stuff that's coming out. And the reason why I'm saying that is because this is the time that agents make their money. So I want everybody to understand, don't be fooled by what your eyes is showing you. There are quarterbacks at this point right now that are being touted as better than they really are. Prime example is the guy Drake May. You know, Drake May is being talked about in highly regarded circles and stuff like that. But that's because of who his agents are. You know, his agents are CAA. And on that CAA group of agents is Jimmy Sexton, or James Sexton, who's been around for a very long time. And he's always been very friendly to people like Daniel Jeremiah and all that. So Daniel Jeremiah has always, for some reason, when it came to CAA clientele, he's always had favorable drafts or mock drafts that favored the CAA agents, the CAA clients more than anything, or the CAA players. So when it comes down to it, there's a lot of stuff that's happening right now. A prime example, have all y'all noticed that how randomly out of nowhere, all of a sudden, all this Caleb Williams hate is coming out? Well, that's because Caleb Williams has made it very clear that he's not signing with an agent at all. And for anybody that knows most NFL circles, they hate when most of these players don't have agents. We saw it happen with Lamar Jackson. They hate when these players don't have agents because they always want to have that buddy-buddy relationship that they always have with the agent and the general manager or whoever's negotiating the contract. So that's why all of a sudden you don't hear no negative talk about Drake May. There's nobody talking about what Drake May really is. And if people do talk about it, all of a sudden it's stamped down. That's all the work of CAA. CAA does a very good job with making sure their clients are always put in a positive light and always looked at as great players and things like that. Again, Daniel Jeremiah, he does his mock draft based on the CAA clientele. He does it just like that. And not only did he do that, he sat up there and he did an interview where he doubled down on the fact that his mock draft to help CAA, to help Drake May even more because he's a CAA client. So, like I said, there's a lot of that stuff that goes on. Prime example, have y'all noticed that all of a sudden JJ McCarthy is now being talked about more? Even though we can all see, understand this, JJ McCarthy was a quarterback playing for a coach who also was a former quarterback. Not only that, a former NFL quarterback. And if a former NFL quarterback feels the need to take the ball out of the quarterback's hand when he himself used to be a quarterback, what does that tell y'all? And from what I'm seeing, I think that JJ McCarthy may be represented by I think it's Don Yee, which is, again, another person that's been around NFL circles for a very long time. In fact, I think he's the agent for a lot of coaches as well. So, again, Don't believe all this hype that you guys are seeing. Don't trust what people are saying right now, because a lot of this is benefiting some of these players. The agents are doing their job and they're working overtime. Because again, there's no way you can watch JJ McCarthy and think that he's a first round pick at all. There's no way you can look at JJ McCarthy and think he's a second round pick. You know, because again, if you're playing for a quarterback coach, a coach who himself was a quarterback, and that coach still felt the need to take the ball out of your hands, that is something that is a huge red flag. Because we've never in the history of any college game, any NFL game, known a quarterback coach, a coach who's been a quarterback themselves, to take the ball out of a quarterback's hand unless they didn't trust the quarterback. Prime example, look at somebody like Jay Gruden. Look at Steve Spurrier. Steve Spurrier would let Danny Werfel do all types of throwing and stuff. Danny Werfel had no locks on his locks at all when it came to throwing the ball. But that's what I'm saying. Quarterbacks, people who are former quarterbacks, they let the quarterback throw the ball. For some reason, Jim Harbaugh just felt the need to not let JJ McCarthy be the guy in Michigan. So again, y'all gotta pay attention to that stuff. But other than that, like I said, you gotta sit up there and think about what. I've said this once and I'll say it again. The combine doesn't read anything. It doesn't do anything. Because it doesn't mimic any type of actual gameplay. It doesn't, it would be nice if you sat up there and to judge a quarterback, you had like drills where the wide receiver had to get off the line and the quarterback has like a 2-man rush thing and 2 offensive linemen to really gauge how they operate under pressure. Can they get a ball out? Can they sit up there and do things like, can they anticipate a throw? Things like that. That type of real world exhibition would help you really evaluate people during the combine. But that's not one of the things that we see. And most of these players, you got to understand, their last games have been like almost 2 months ago. 2, maybe even 3 months ago for some of them, because their last game was the last regular season game of the football season. For some, they stopped playing once the team was eliminated from playoff contention. So some of these guys you haven't seen in a while. So like I said, to me, when it comes to the NFL Combine, it doesn't measure anything. It only measures how strong guys are, how fast guys are, and how high they jump. That's about it. All those drills and that stuff doesn't really do much of nothing. Because sometimes what you got to understand is that some of these guys are better in-game performers than they are when it comes to being practice performers or exhibition performers. They don't sit up there and they're not the same when it comes to these type of things. There's some guys that are just great at being great inside the game, and there's some guys that are great at just being practice guys. But you also get the flip side of that too. So even with that, if you're going to watch the combine, watch it for what it is. Watch it for the entertainment value. Understand, you're going to see guys that are super strong. You're going to see guys that are super fast. You're going to like that. But understand, these guys have no pads on. They're doing no real drills. They're doing nothing. They're doing nothing. It's a nothingness. None of this stuff is going to show anything better. But like I said, their agents are the ones who really make it work. I mean, how many of y'all remember when Willis McGahee got drafted? How many of y'all remember his agent? And his agent was so known. How many of y'all remember when Drew Rosenhaus sat up there, had Willis McGahee was going to go in the 4th round. He was a running back that got injured early in the season, did not play the entire season, and Drew Rosenhaus worked his magic well enough to get Willis McGahee drafted in the first round, knowing he was not going to be fully healthy for the start of the NFL season. Now, Willis McGahee became a decent running back, there's no doubt about that, but he wasn't he wasn't a first round value pick. But again, like I said, pay attention to what the combine really is, and don't feed into a lot of this other stuff that's going on. Understand, your eyes are not deceiving you. If you have questions about a quarterback, don't listen to everybody else, because your eyes are not fooling you. Your eyes are definitely not fooling you. Some of all this talking that's coming up is because these agents got these millions out here. Think about the guy who they just recently talked about, was the former scout for the Jets. And all of a sudden he's saying, well, from my thing, I have a 5th round grade on Caleb Williams. Really? A 5th round grade on Caleb Williams? That's exactly what you got on Caleb Williams? A 5th round grade? Come on, man. Get out of here. But you happen to have a 1st round grade on Drake May. Some things, y'all, when it doesn't make sense and it doesn't live up to the hype, especially when you're looking at it from an eye test situation, don't sit up there and be fooled by that. These dudes are being paid. These dudes are helping their friends. These dudes are assisting their friends to do that. Because again, there's no way you look at Drake May and say that Washington needs to draft Drake May. Washington needs excitement here. We need somebody that's going to make a difference here. And Drake May is not that guy. It's going to take time before he becomes what you need him to become. Washington doesn't need that. Because if that's the point, we could have waited for Sam Howell. And we saw how bad he played full year one. So no, that doesn't make any sense. But on to the next thing. So I've been a staunch person about taking the quarterback with the number 2 overall pick. So a couple people been asking me, John, GM John, owner comes to you, and see me, I'm not the hypothetical person. I don't like doing hypotheticals. But in this instance, because so many people ask me, they said, John, Josh Harris comes to you. He wants you to move down. You have to make a plan for moving down. He still wants a quarterback. He still wants a quality quarterback, but he wants to get more draft picks. And we need you to sit up there and make that happen. So, of course, when I was first asked the hypothetical, I immediately said, I don't do hypotheticals. But I kept being asked. So now, this is GM John's hypothetical, answering the hypothetical question of, if I was forced to move down, what would I do? Now, a lot of this plays into how I look at the draft, right? So let's just say Josh Harris tells me he wants us to move down, which means I have to give up the number 2 overall pick, which means that there are quarterbacks that are there that I would really want, but at the same time, he's telling me he needs me to move back. So the first thing I would do, the first thing I have or will do, is look at the first 10 teams within the top 10, right? That need quarterbacks. So that's the Giants, Atlanta, the Jets, the Bears. I would force the Bears to make the pick of Caleb Williams. But just those teams. So when I'm looking at the Jets, the Giants, the Falcons, New England, things like that, the first thing I would do is I don't want to fall out of the top 10. Because the reason I don't want to fall out of the top 10 is because there's a particular guy that I know is going to go early, and I have to be in that range to pick him up. And his value to me is important because I plan on getting something else in the second round that is going to be valuable to him. So Here it is. So what I would do is I would go to New England. I would sit up there and let it be known that I'm willing to trade back from the number 2 overall pick. And I would want to haul myself. Just like how the Bears want to haul, I would want to haul as well. Now, this is based on what I feel would be the right thing to do. Now, I would go to New England. I would go to Atlanta. I would go to the Giants. I would go to the Jets. And I would tell them all right off the bat. So this would be my thing. I want a number 2. I want next year's number 1. We swap ones. And on top of that, I want a 4th round pick. A lot of y'all might say, oh, that's fairly reasonable. Yeah, it is. The reason I want a 2nd round pick is because that'll now give me, especially in the top 10, that'll give me 3 picks in the 2nd round, which is great when you think about what I want to do, right? So say the teams balk at that. We don't want to give up our 1st round pick next year. Okay, cool. This is what we'll do then. This is what I'll suggest to them. Instead of the 1st round pick next year, we swap first, and I want your 2nd and your 3rd. And then that's it for us when it comes to the value of the swap. Now, let's just say New England go with it, or whoever goes. Let's say the teams go with it, right? The very next thing I would do is draft Kenyon Coleman. He benefits us because we now get that big body receiver at 6'3", 6'4". And on top of that, with that you accommodate one thing that you're going to need. You're going to have to replace Curtis Samuel. This guy, he's a guy that can get up there. He's actually pretty fast. You might want to watch him in this upcoming combine to see what his time is. I think he's going to probably be 4.4, but that's very good for what you need him to do. Not only that, he uses his body very well. He's very under control when it comes to catching the balls. He's a big target, so he can out-jump guys. But again, that's what I would do. I would take Kenyon Coleman in the 1st round. Now, with my 1st, 2nd round pick, I would go ahead and I would take Jordan Travis. Jordan Travis, Florida State quarterback, who has familiarity, because I'm a true believer that when you draft a quarterback, your best bet is at times to draft his weapon, especially when he's a 1st-year guy. Why? Because he will have a comfortability with that guy that he may have to build as he gets to know some of the other other wide receivers on the team. And with me, I would take Jordan Travis. Again, understand, Jordan Travis is a very top-level quality quarterback. Y'all, if y'all want to look at it, you can watch the LSU game versus Florida State. He actually played very well in there. Not only that, understand, his impact was so big that the College Football Playoff Committee took Florida State out of the rankings solely took them out of the chance to make the playoffs solely because Jordan Travis was not on the team. So again, already I've drafted a big wide receiver. I've gotten more than likely a very special quarterback. Because, again, he's one of the guys not being talked about. He's one of the guys that, when you look at his film, he's very good. He throws a very good deep ball. He's a guy that can get to the edges and outrun people. He's a guy that can extend plays. People are not paying attention to him, and somebody can get somebody like him very special. Now, with the next 2 picks, the next 2 second-round picks, I would then draft an offensive lineman. And in fact, I would probably draft 2 offensive linemen. Because at the end of the day, your best bet when it comes to the edge players, your best bet is to try what you can to get one in free agency. Now, depending on who you trade with. Now, if you get with the Jets, you could make something where you say, okay, give me your second round pick. I won't take your first round pick from next year. Give me your second round pick, and I'll take Will McDonald the fourth. So now you got a young edge guy who can rush the passer, and you can probably get yourself a free agent. Now you can possibly solidify your edge players again without even with only a big contract being for one of them while the other guy's still on the rookie deal. And you're talking about being able to draft an offensive lineman still in the second round. Now, in the third round, you sit up there and you go about it the same way. Because remember, I said I'll take a second and a third. In the third round, that means in a certain scenario, you got 3 picks in the second. You got about 4 picks in the third. I think it's 4 picks in the third. So now you're looking really good and possibly able to sit up there and rebuild your team in a very short amount of time if you make this deal. Now, again, it's all about the fact of having the ability to understand what you need to do in a draft that's going to be smart. Because again, I think most people don't get it. Michael Penix is going to be a first round pick. He doesn't have an agent. At least I don't think, from all the reports, he doesn't have an agent yet. So even with that being said, trust me, if Michael Penix had an agent right now, if Michael Penix was represented by CAA, he would be talked about in the same breath as Drake May. They would be telling everybody he's the second best quarterback in this draft. But understand this, because he's not represented by CAA, that's the only reason why he's not being talked about like that. But again, like I said, that would be what GM John would do if I was forced to move back. If I was forced to move back, I'm gonna go over the scenario again. If I was forced to move back, I would choose one of the teams that have quarterback issues that are picking in the top 10. That means New England, the Jets, the Giants, the Falcons, right? That would be the group that I would deal with. Then I would ask them, along with me moving down, I would want either a first next year, their second this year, and a fourth. If they bulk at that, I would then want their second round pick this year. They can keep their first round pick for next year, but I would want their third round pick this year. So we would swap first round picks. I would want their second this year and their third this year. So that puts Washington right at the brink of still being able to have a lot of picks early in the first 3 rounds. So after that, with me moving down, I would draft Kenyon Coleman, the wide receiver out of Florida State. And then early in the second round, I would draft the Florida State quarterback, Jordan Travis. That you now bind a quality quarterback with his top receiver. And that will make for a very good transition when it comes to him when it comes to both of them playing in the NFL and your quarterback developing a lot quicker. Also in the second round, I would take 2 offensive linemen or 2 offensive linemen. But if it's with the Jets, I will take the second round. Instead of taking the second round pick, I would take Will McDonald the fourth. That will give us the other edge player on the other side. And then in the third round, you can play around with whatever. I think it'll be like 4 picks in the third round. You can pick a running back. You can pick a top level running back. You can pick a safety. You can pick a corner, because this draft actually has a lot of receivers and it has a lot of defensive backs in it. So you might get some quality stuff down later. And again, picking that many times in the third, that's going to be beneficial. But That's what General Manager John would do. Y'all tell me what y'all think. What do y'all think about my draft scenario? And what would y'all do if y'all were forced to move back? Not that you want to move back. If Josh Harris comes to you and you were forced to move back, what would you do? Other than that, this has been your man John Fortune, and this has been the Frustrated Fan Sports Show.